All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Poly with us. I'm here once again with Heem. How you feeling?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just back from the southern swing of the United States. Got to play with some alligators and eat some as well. And now we back here.
Yeah. I seen you sent me some pictures of like you petting a gator. I don't know if you was. It was actually,
It wasn't me.
yeah, it wasn't you, but you was awful close to the gator. I was like, yeah, that's not me. You can have that.
Yeah, they like marshmallows apparently. So just when you see one, give them marshmallow and see what happens, or not. I don't know.
I'll take your word for it. But I do know, like down south, like Mississippi, Florida, Louisiana, they do eat like gator tails, like fried up
Hmm.
gator tails and stuff.
Yeah.
I had some before. It's alright.
Yeah, it's good. It's like chicken. They eat gator tails. They eat gator nuggets. Those are really good. That is like chicken nuggets, but probably a little bit better. Yeah, yeah. They eat anything down there though. I mean, it's great food because of that. But there's a lot of stuff that they eat that you be like, I don't know.
Yeah. But that's what it is.
Yeah,
I'm glad you have fun.
thank you.
Now, you got go back for having fun to some serious topics.
Yeah.
First things first. The Haitian president was
Hmm.
assassinated yesterday, and
Yeah.
I'm not going to front like this is my expertise,
Hmm.
but I do have some opinions on what's going on just off of the brief information I do have.
Hmm.
But what do you think about this whole situation?
Well, there's so many things to talk about. I mean, Haiti, Haiti is like a really it's the first country to get its independence from a colonial power. So you always kind of have to remember that they were the first one on the side of the world, and so they've always been punished for that through like the French taking their infrastructure out of the country after the revolution to uh, selling their debt. I think J.P. Morgan Chase owned their debt until like the 50s or something like that. Something like really ridiculous. Like the French had the debt, and then they sold it to like banks, and then they finally were able to pay it off in J.P. Morgan Chase. And this is the debt from the
Getting their
revolution
independence.
from
Yeah.
getting independent. Exactly.
Mm.
So that debt was there for about 300 years until finally J.P. Morgan Chase. I'm probably wrong on the bank, but it's one of those big New York banks. They owned the debt in the 1950s. They finally paid it off. So U.S. has always been there, kind of like causing problems and stuff. And so the president that was murdered, he actually was probably not even legitimate. I mean, he overstayed his he decided to stay on another year, even though he his term had ended back in February. He just said I'm staying another year, which was obviously not like doesn't make any sense at all, and reminds us a lot of what was trying to go on here with our prior president. And so yeah, it's always been like a very country that's been unstable. Uh, uh, U.S. has always meddled in their affairs and installing leaders, which was the prior president who was murdered yesterday. But I'm not an expert on Haiti at all, obviously, but just looking at history and looking at how they've always been they've always been meddled with, and they've always like had instability. Even when they elect their presidents or leaders democratically, the U.S. is like, "No, we don't want that. We're going to come in here and, and have a new president," and that's what's been going on in that country, unfortunately. And we're 11 years past the earthquake, and that destroyed many homes and many lives in that country, and they really haven't recovered from that either. I remember when the Red Cross raised about, I think, almost like it was over like 200 billion, like two over like $1 to $2 billion. I think something really ridiculous, and that money was supposed to go to building houses, and instead they paid themselves off and built like 20 houses in the country. So it's just a country that's always it's like the like they climb up the ladder and they climb the steps, and then somebody decides to like take down like 3 steps that were at the bottom, so they have to come back down and keep climbing up. And it's been the battle for that country for since they defeated the French during the Haitian Revolution back in the 1600s. So um, yeah, man, like it's unfortunate what's
1800.
happened. I'm sorry, what's that?
No. I was just
I said 1800s. That's the 1600s. Yeah, 1800s. Sorry
yeah.
about that.
Mm.
And so yeah, it's always been a country that's always been trying to climb up, and people take the legs from them. And this is like another thing. And with the assassination yesterday, there's like reports of DEA. They're saying they're a DEA agent from America, and the person had an American accent or something close to it. They were Spanish as well. So it's really, I don't think the U.S. had anything to do with it, because I don't think the U.S. even really, after like, there's no reason for them to put to boot the last president, because the president that was murdered yesterday, and I'm sorry for getting his name, unfortunately, but I don't really have much respect for him, considering that he tried to stay in power and was really handling COVID poorly and so forth. But there's no reason for the U.S. to assassinate him. So I can't even imagine like that even being possible. And also, like, I don't understand why a U.S. like DEA or CIA or FBI come down there and say we're FBI and we're going to assassinate your leader. That doesn't make any sense at all. So I have a feeling that it's probably like some mercenaries, or maybe like one of the gangs that we're going up against, or one of the militia groups that are going up against the current government. That's my feeling, but I'm not an expert in Haiti either, but it's just been a lot of stuff that's happened in the last 24, 48 hours. And it's really unfortunate that this country, that anytime they try to climb up, somebody takes their legs out. It just seems like it happens all the time now.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm not going to speculate on who did the assassination, because I really don't know. In this particular case, like you said, he had close ties to U.S. So in this particular case, I don't think the CIA would have anything to do with this particular assassination. Just overall, though, Haiti runs parallel to, in a lot of ways, to situations that happen to Black Americans, right? People talk about Black Wall Street, but it was much more than just Black Wall Streets. There was middle class to upper class Black communities that was destroyed all across the United States. And it's just, I know people focus on Black Wall Street because that's the most famous case, but it happened all over. There's been lynchings. There have been well-to-do Black people that had businesses that was lynched. So it happened all the time. In Haiti presented a major threat because in 1804, basically the same year that Thomas Jefferson was elected U.S. president, who was a big slave owner as well, as most of the founding fathers were. Haiti represented a case of a slave state, because that's what it was, that the slaves ended up getting their freedom. They rebelled, and the slave owners in the U.S. was terrified that could happen here. So Haiti was always looked at as an outcast from the days of Dessalines, who actually finished the revolution. And they always was punished, especially when they eventually took over the whole island. They took over the Dominican Republic at one point, and they was actually forced, as you mentioned, to pay France back for winning their independence. So, which is crazy. That's like the United States during the Revolutionary War having to pay Britain back for winning their independence. That's the equivalence. And I believe at the time it was something about 75 million francs, which is back then was a crazy amount of money. As you said, they didn't even, it was a century later and they still haven't paid off that debt.
And it's also not even owned by the French. That's what's crazy about it. It was owned by like JP Morgan Chase or something like that.
Right. And Haiti also, it goes into how the Monroe Doctrine was interpreted as well. Like during the Monroe Document, the original was they wasn't going to let Europe intervene in the affairs of Latin America. So everybody took that and they used it basically to say we can do whatever we want to in the Americas. So Haiti, like, people don't even realize that the longest Marine occupation was basically in Haiti. Marines was in Haiti for about 2 decades at least.
Yep.
So they overthrew. This was during Woodrow Wilson administration. Haiti had elected a new president.
Mm-hmm.
The people chose what direction they wanted to go, but the U.S. wasn't feeling that direction, so they came, overthrew the president, overthrew their constitution, and installed again a puppet. So, and Haiti's not the only country this has happened to. If you ever read the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman, it's a great book. Definitely recommend that for anyone who wants more information on these type of cases, because it happened all throughout Latin America. All throughout Latin America, all throughout the Caribbean, South America. It's a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just look what happened to Honduras. Just look at that situation. So, and again, this current situation is just, it just goes on to, it just continues that. And it's sad because Haiti had and have so much potential. It just, with all the interests that have their hands in Haiti, who knows when the island will actually be able to persevere and live up to its full potential. That's what made me sad. I know some people feel different ways about the UN, but when the UN was in Haiti, they wasn't doing what they were supposed to do either. There was constant reports of mistreatment, sexual abuse. If you look up some of those stories, it's sickening as well. This is during the earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a lot going on with that, and I wish the people of Haiti the best.
Yeah, that's all we can really say right now. Said just keep them in our minds and stuff. We all like, if you have any African descent in you, should have like some keep your eye on Haiti and always helps out them in some capacity. So it's unfortunate what's going on there, and they still have the COVID problem as well. I don't think they've administered a single vaccine in that country yet. Yeah, man, it's just it's terrible.
All right, so moving on to that, we have a lot of domestic policy that we have to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
And before we get into the infrastructure bill, because it's a lot to talk about when it comes to that as well, I kind of want to touch on ESPN, ExxonMobil, and real work versus online activism. Now, those three different subjects you might ask, but to me, they all connect, right?
Mm.
So the ESPN story with Rachel Nichols, I see this go on in work environments all the time. I think if you Black and you've been in corporate America, what happened there is not a surprise. And with Exxon, how do that relate to ESPN? Well, again, it's workplace. I mean, to get a foot up in society, a lot of people just think you have to be ruthless, have no morals, have no convictions, and just all out for yourself, again, in the corporate environment. So the brother that was what he thought was interviewing for another job, that was executive with Exxon, basically showed he willing to do anything to advance himself personally and to gain a dollar or gain more power. And that's what it kind of relates to when it comes to the corporate environment a lot of Black people find themselves in right now. That's why, to me, it's very important that we start to build our own institutions and own businesses, own co-ops. And it's easier said than done. I'm not going to pretend like it's easy because we have a extreme capital problem. If you go online, if you go on YouTube right now, right, there'll be a bunch of different Black people or quote unquote online activists saying like, just leave the corporate plantation, start your own. I mean, it's not as simple as that. If you have a family, you have to take care of bills. It's not just easy, just get up and start your own business. It takes a lot of effort. And that's not a shot at anybody in particular. In general, you see that with a lot of different people. They make it seem simpler than what it really is to just leave the corporate environment. So I think it need to be a discussion until we have the institutions that we need for us to employ our own people, or for us to get the capital we need to really start the businesses that on a mass scale. Individually, yes, people could do it, but on a mass scale, till we get the businesses we need, till we get the co-ops we need, how do we survive in corporate America? What's the best strategy to go about that? I think that's an interesting discussion.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to get into that point, man. Like to touch a little bit on the different topics we touched on prior. So like with the Rachel Nichols Maria Taylor incident, Rachel Nichols was caught a year ago saying that she was upset about Maria Taylor getting the position at ESPN's NBA studio show, and she felt like she was owed it because it was her contract or something or whatever. And she made mentions or overtures that Maria Taylor is a diversity hire, which is something that every Black person has heard if they've attended college, if they work anywhere. They've always heard it. They probably heard that they're a diversity hire, especially in corporate America or associations, nonprofits, or whatever. You've always heard, you don't really belong, which is really unfortunate. Especially considering that we have to work much harder to get to these positions than anybody else. They're not taking any like random Black person off the street. They're taking people that are most qualified, and still our white colleagues still feel like a lot of them feel like they're owed it over us, even though we have to work a lot harder to get to these points. So it's absolutely like a horrendous situation, and I actually I don't feel sympathy towards Rachel Nichols at all. I don't feel bad for her because she's very, if you know her background, like she's very privileged. Like she's Diane Sawyer's daughter-in-law, or I'm sorry, stepdaughter, and or I'm sorry, daughter-in-law, yeah, because her father, yeah, daughter-in-law, and so that probably got her into working for Disney. Diane Sawyer obviously hosted different shows, but still, I'm sure she worked hard to get to what she's gotten to, but Maria Taylor, to be hosting a studio show as coming from where she's come from, I'm sure like she's had to do a lot. And she's got her MBA, and she's been at ESPN for a long time grinding. Like I remember she was doing like women's like volleyball games and all that stuff like 10 years ago, so or 5-6 years ago. So to get from where she was to now, she grinded, worked hard, and done college football, done these different things to be taken serious, and for somebody to undermine her position like that, it's criminal. The brother from Exxon, so like the other story there is that he and another person thought they were interviewing for a position as headhunters, and instead they're being recorded by Greenpeace, and they gave the entire bag away about how they influence different politicians, mainly like our friend Joe Manchin, who was caught about a month ago on Zoom talking to another group about how they can help them influence policy as well, including damn near bribing people for jobs and stuff. They just gave the entire bag away what they do. But when you listen to that audio, that brother has like no remorse at all. He's just like, I'm getting this bag any way I can. He no loyalty, no concern for the environment. I'm sure he gives no fucks about his people at all. He's just like, I'm trying to get this bag. And I don't know him, obviously. None of us know him really, but who he works for and what he was saying in that audio or in that video. And there are a lot of Black people that get into these corporate positions that are just like, I'm out for Dolo, I'm out for myself, and I'm going to get mine, and forget everybody else after that comes behind me, because I have to get mine. And he probably he probably thinks in his own mind that he's helping advance matters for his people, but like I can't. No, he's not. Just be honest with ourselves, he's not doing that. And so it's tough, man. Like it's tough. Like you have in one position Maria Taylor, who grinded, who worked her ass off to get to what she's gotten to, and a colleague is upset that instead of claiming that like, hey, she worked hard to get here and she's great, it's more so like, hey, you were a diversity hire, and that's really unfortunate. And then you have this other brother who's like just grinding over bones and dead bodies and stuff to get to where he's gotten to, and is completely unscrupulous and doesn't really care about anybody else. But now he's like also on the Summer Jam screen about the dangers of lobbyists in America and stuff. And he probably never thought he'd be that, but there he is. And so to go back to your question of how do you survive corporate America or any professional environment as a Black person, you know, you got to keep your soul. That's like the number one thing. You got to keep your soul intact. Like whatever morals you have, you got to come in with that and maintain that, because it's very easy for somebody to like step on that and try to stomp that out of you. You also have to like keep your and I'm saying this from me being here. I'm not giving anybody pointers on how to succeed in corporate America, because I'm not successful in corporate America myself, so I can't really comment on that. But you just gotta keep your morals. That's like the number one thing, is make sure that you have a real like base in hand, and that you won't compromise yourself or prostitute yourself, which that brother did to move up. You're gonna have colleagues that are detractors and that are haters. You gotta just like be confident that you belong where you are. I know a lot of us have imposter syndrome and think that they tell us that we don't belong there, but for somebody like Maria Taylor, she worked really hard and is really accomplished to get to that point. And a lot of us are that and then some. You just got to be able to say like, I belong here and I'm doing this. And then you got to be like, you got to stand up and not be scared of the feelings of those white colleagues. There's a balance obviously to play, but if you know you belong there, then you don't need to be given a nag about what they think about you and if you belong there or not, or your qualifications. You belong there, and that's enough for you.
That kind of where I fall. Yeah. Like, I don't care who thinks I don't deserve a particular position. I'm just like, that's a you problem. That
right.
has nothing to do with me. You can think what you want. I'm gonna go about my business, do what's best for myself, do what's best for my family. That's number one. And if you want to just break it down, I'll let them know historically, white people have always had the advantage. I mean, literally for centuries, Black people wasn't allowed to get certain positions in corporate America. You could go back after World War II, Black soldiers that fought to defend this country wasn't initially allowed to get the GI Bill, wasn't allowed to get VA loans. White veterans were literally able to pass down generational wealth, or if it's not, making them rich, was able to pass down houses to their children off of the GI Bill, off of VA loans after World War II. That made a big difference in generations. People talk about the New Deal during the Great Depressions. Black people was limited in the programs they could participate in.
Yep.
So that set us back even further. Initially, if you want to go back even further, you want to talk about reparations. You know who got reparations? Not the freed slaves, but the slave masters.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little known fact that rarely is discussed, that slave owners was actually reimbursed for losing their quote unquote property. So reparations was paid out to slave owners, but not to the newly freed slaves. That's why a bunch of newly freed slaves had to go back to sharecropping.
Mm-hmm.
And I know in my family, I had sharecroppers in my family as recently as my grandfather. Yeah. Wow. So it's like that. So I'm not really trying to hear this pity party. Affirmative action really didn't do what it needed to do for Black people overall. It was instituted, and it wasn't just for Black people. It was for women. They included basically all minorities, and a lot of times when you do that, it gets diluted. Mm-hmm. And like I said, Black people need specific problems to address historical wrongs. I think each group needs specific policies, because when you classify everybody as a minority, okay, but that doesn't mean all our problems is the same. We have unique problems amongst different minority groups that need to be addressed.
Yep.
And that's no different from us. Historical housing discrimination, redlining, a huge
public schooling. Yeah.
Yeah, yep, a huge, huge deal. I mean, and that's one of the things. And I try to tie all the topics we have together because it's all interconnected. Later on, we're going to talk about infrastructure. There's not enough talk in the infrastructure bill about addressing the infrastructure problems in Black neighborhoods, the environmental problems in Black neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
To the credit, there is some progressive groups that really trying to push the progressives in Congress not to vote for the bill if it doesn't include certain environmental factors. But it need to be more of that. So there's a lot of different things to tie in, specifically about Rachel Nichols, right, in this situation. It is funny to see so many Black people. I won't say so many. That's an overstatement, but there's a decent amount of Black people I've seen defending her.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, I think she might. I don't know. She helped some people with her influence, or they cool with her. Or they don't want to rock the boat. They want to be seen as friendly, so they
Right.
continue to get checks. But if you don't want to say nothing, you don't want to rock the boat, I would just stay quiet. You don't have to come out. Just don't say anything.
I mean, that's been the gist of it, man. Like, I didn't see I just heard about the Richard Jefferson and Kendrick Perkins stuff, and I'm like, no one asked you to say anything about this. Why are you defending her honor? Like, no one asked. No one. Who cares what your opinion is on this? This has nothing to do with you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, this, you weren't injured at all. Why are you like talking about this? But they felt they needed to step up and talk about it, and there they are, looking like idiots.
Right. It's just not a good look. It is, on one hand, the only thing, I'm not even defending, the only thing that I could say anything on her side is that she didn't know she was being recorded, because I guess she thought the camera was off and it was a mistake on her and her team part or whatever. But whatever, because people do say all sorts of stuff in private that's going to be crazy that they wouldn't say to your face. So
Yep.
And personally, what somebody personally think, I don't really care. It's more of what you do. But in this case, how she was talking, it seemed like she would go to the company and try to get her pulled. That's what it seems like, from that little conversation, that she would try to get the sister out of there. But, it kind of, that's just something you have to deal with when it comes to corporate America. I don't think nobody should be surprised. And if you watch Rachel Nichols throughout the years, I mean, it definitely shouldn't be surprising. I didn't caught a lot of little subtle stuff.
Yeah.
That she done said over the years. And ESPN have a real problem, not just with her, but you got punk ass Stephen A. Smith, who I never liked. I know people starting to get into him now because of Kwame.
Yeah.
But I didn't like him way before that.
Yeah, I was the same way.
Way before that. And it's a lot of people try and get that Kwame stimulus package. I like whatever. I don't care about that at all. But when it comes to specifically Stephen A. Smith, like the Kaepernick situation was when I was really looking at him differently. I was like, oh no, he's completely off the rails when it comes to Black issues. And even before the Kaepernick thing, the way he would talk about Black athletes that got in trouble compared to the way he talked about white athletes who got in trouble, night and day. And I remember he went on conservative.
Oh yeah, he was on Fox News. Yeah.
Oh, it was more than Fox News. He went to talk radio.
He was on Armstrong Williams. He was on like I remember he was when he got fired.
I think it was Cernovich. He might have went on Mike Cernovich show.
It's possible. I just know he was on Armstrong Williams show. Like after he got fired from ESPN, he was doing like political commentary on Fox News. So yeah, he showed you what he's about, man. He's a right wing conservative.
Right. And that is crazy. Like my problem is it shouldn't have took a former NBA player to start roasting him on these issues for attention to be brought on Stephen A. Smith and what he did. Yeah. Like the Kaepernick thing alone was enough for me. Besides the Kaepernick thing, like I said, the way he would talk about weed and all that. I'm like, yo, shut up, dude.
Yeah, man.
Like, shut up.
Yeah, he's a clown, yo. Just loud and a clown. Virgin Islands. Yeah, I could. Yeah, he's from the Virgin. Thank you, Superstar Bella. Yeah, I could. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's influencing things like his background. I do know he's like. I did know he's Caribbean. I knew he's from the Caribbean. His family's like from the Caribbean, but man, like that dude's always been problematic to me, man. Like, I remember even back in the day when he was on ESPN the first time, and you know how he was kind of exploiting Iverson a little bit in their relationship.
Definitely.
To get ratings hits and all that stuff.
And then he stabbed Iverson in the back.
And he stabbed in the back, yeah.
You did that was your man's, gave you exclusive interviews, and then you did him dirty at the end. Like, you can't respect somebody like him.
Yeah, he's the brother that was in the Exxon video. That's him. Like, he's actually that guy that will do whatever he needs to do to step up and win over people and stuff. So win for himself.
Exactly.
So none of that surprises me with him. And your bigger point with ESPN, you know, when they've always had a problem with like covering race matters, especially they try to do a little bit of stuff or rehab during the when the prior president, who I think was like a cokehead, a drug addict, I can't remember his name right now, John Stosser or something like that. They were more of a serious journalistic outfit, and they try to cover race in a more serious way. But I see your cat's back.
Yeah. Every video, no lie.
I gotta be in it.
Attention whore, I'm telling you.
So they try to cover race in a more serious way, but they let him go, and the new person now, like, they've gone off the rails with this stuff. I remember they had Whitlock try to do the undefeated many years ago. We all know how Whitlock is now, but you know, when he went at, I think, Scoop Jackson back in the day, because Scoop Jackson, you know, wasn't as dignified and all that stuff. And then I saw this brother eating ribs on TV and like smiling about it and stuff on around the horn way back in the day. I don't know, man. Like ESPN's always been kind of funny side when it comes to even especially like you know how they hammer in on the steroids and all that stuff. But I remember when Peyton Manning, Al Jazeera covered a story about Peyton Manning's wife getting those steroid pills back in the day. Narrated people about it. In fact, they were trying to discredit Al Jazeera, who's like one of the best journalistic outfits in the world. They were trying to hard discredit and silence it and all that stuff because it's Peyton Manning, All-American hero, superstar quarterback, and now he's got a show on ESPN now. So, nah, man, none of this surprises me. And then Rachel Nichols, you know, she's always done that.
She's been on some funny stuff.
Yeah. So.
I remember during the whole Kaepernick situation, which just to put it in light again, it's not about Kaepernick himself. It was what he was protesting.
Mm-hmm.
It was police brutality and the unarmed killing of Black people that's going on all across the country. You know, that was simply about that. They try to make it everything else. They try to make it, he anti-veterans and military.
Yeah.
Well, I told them, well, bitch, I was in the military. I spent 6 years active duty. Right. I support Kaepernick. Do I not count because I'm Black and support him?
Right. No,
don't speak for all veterans. And remember, there was a veterans for veterans for Kaepernick hashtag going on. There was a bunch of Black veterans supporting him.
Right.
Because why? A lot of Black people saw racism inside the military as well. Mm-hmm. Every institution. So like it's crazy. They tried to change the subject to everything except for the main issue. And they used Black people like Stephen A. and Whitlock, because Whitlock was worse than Stephen A. on the subject. Whitlock was the absolute worst.
Yeah, he was a monster.
Yeah.
I remember they had when he had that Fox show, they were making fun of Kaepernick from being out in the NFL.
Yeah.
And they had Christopher Reed Kid, exactly. They had him up there and with the fro and all that stuff, and just minstrel and all that stuff.
Yeah, with the fake afro and I remember all that.
They had and then when he had the show, he had that dude, Uncle Jimmy, whatever his name is. I never watch a show. Like I don't watch these like shows and stuff. Like clips of it. And I think they had Uncle Jimmy dude that was just like straight cooning for they were bringing him on to coon for like 5 minutes. I'll say the word coon. That's what it was.
Yeah, and I don't know about Uncle Jimmy because like I can't stomach Whitlock. But I do know I used to like Marcellus Wiley
Mm-hmm.
until he joined that show. Then I was like, oh, okay, he's starting to act like Whitlock a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't know, man. It's just like I understand as Black people sometimes you can't always work for the most moral company in the world. Most of these corporations do a bunch of evil stuff and stuff you might not morally agree with, but you don't have to defend it. I mean,
Exactly. That's
you
it.
can you can go about mind your business, do your job, go home, you know, feed your family, and that's it. But some of these people, I guess, to advance, they try to go the extra mile and
Opportunists.
just defend the company at all costs. I've never been like that. Like
Opportunists, man.
I, I just can't. And bring it back to my man at Exxon. Like my man was just showing. He was showing. Now he didn't know that was so great about it because he didn't know he was getting filmed.
Yeah.
It was like, what's that? Borak. What's his name? Sasha
With Sacha Baron Cohen.
Baron Cohen. Like, did you ever watch This Is America?
Yeah, yeah.
So it reminded me of that.
Yeah, it was exactly like that. Exactly like that.
When people would just tell you whatever and that was on their mind, just tell you the straight up truth. Like, dude was just saying, oh yeah, we suppress the science. We got senators, we got Manchin, we got Cinema, we got Coons. We trying to get Kelly.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Gateway. And the thing that to tie a little bit to politics is that's that conversation along with the Joe Manchin tape that came out about a month ago where he talked to the I think they were called the No Labels or whatever, that group.
Right.
They're all billionaires. Yeah, these people aren't working for you. You know what I mean? They're not working. They don't have your interest in mind. Joe Manchin talked more about why he's opposed to ending the filibuster, which was like if we give her the filibuster, then y'all can't win, which is what he was saying in that video with the No Labels group. Like, y'all, we can't advance things that favor you if we get rid of the filibuster. We can't if we get rid of the filibuster, that loses my power and all this stuff. He pretty much spilled out the bag of what he was doing and all this stuff, and he's been very coy about all this stuff in terms of media appearances, but and talking to his constituents. But for that group, he was able to talk about it all. He's like, yeah, this is what we're doing. He's busted open for him pretty much. And that's the I call it corruption in American politics, is that's who these politicians work for. They don't work for you. They work for their donors.
Their donors. Yeah.
That's it. That's all they work for.
It's funny, that comment distracted me. Rachel has a weird fetish with NBA players. That's hilarious. But anyway, yeah, but you're right. You're right. They not working for us. They working for their donors, and the media is a part of it too, because who owns the media as well?
Yep.
Like, this Exxon story haven't been a big deal on mainstream media at all. It's only been really circulating amongst online progressives for the most part.
Yep.
It seems like nobody else cares, or they're just like, oh, okay, that's what lobbyists are supposed to do. And to me, it's just crazy. Like, they will burn down the world to make an extra dollar.
Yep. Not a dollar, a penny.
Penny.
1 penny, they'll burn down the world for it, because that's what matters. And that tells you, like, all you need to know about when you say that these people work for the donors. That's all you need to know, is that the system that we currently have in place, money is what's valued over everything else, including your own lives. And we've seen it with the COVID-19 stuff over the past years. We've seen it with this. It's just more and more examples of it, and more to cut. The media is like saying, like, we're not gonna talk about it.
Yep, and we got to cut through this media thing with bipartisanship, like, and compromise. I don't care about compromise if it's a bad deal.
Right, exactly.
Who cares? Like, one of the worst laws that was ever passed in this country history was the Compromise of 1850, which had the Fugitive Slave Act in it. That was a bipartisan compromise. The North got something, the South got something. The compromise was basically that California would enter as a free state. Utah and one of the other states that newly formed states would decide for themselves
Right.
But along that, they had the Fuse and Stave Act, which, you know, it made it mandatory for American citizens, even if you was an abolitionist, even if you didn't agree with slavery, to capture escaped slaves.
Mm-hmm.
That was a compromise. That was bipartisanship. That was
Mm-hmm.
a terrible decision. I mean, the Iraq War was very bipartisan. It
I
wasn't just
mean, that's
the
it. I mean,
Patriot Act was bipartisan.
how about Three Fifths Compromise is bipartisan?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, I don't care about bipartisanship.
Yeah.
So it was about to be, thankfully it didn't go through. But you know, the grand bargain that Obama and that was negotiated with, that was that Bowles Commission.
Mm-hmm.
That compromise would have cut Social Security.
Ended it. Yep.
Yeah, it wouldn't have ended it, but it would have cut it
It,
dramatically.
all I know is that
Yeah.
they would have done it to a point where it wouldn't have we probably wouldn't have it now. Like it was
Right.
that's how bad a compromise was, and
It was a
totally
terrible
for that.
compromise.
Yeah, and the only reason why they didn't go through is because Republicans wanted more.
Right. And the media, you remember during that time, the media was really pushing for that to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And what that would have done, if it would have went through, that would have helped skyrocket senior citizen poverty rates more than it already is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because too many senior citizens can't live off Social Security alone as it is right now.
Right.
So, you know, they wasn't going, if I remember correctly, they wasn't going to keep up with the cost of inflation, with the cost with COLA, with the cost of living adjustment. So that's major. That's major. So yeah, bad compromises.
Compromise. You don't need the whole gist is like you said, bipartisanship. We shouldn't try to find ingredients of bad policy and bad laws and bad terms, and yet for some reason, and this even goes back to like the media and how the Jake Tappers of the world think that they call balls and strikes instead of like telling the truth. Like you shouldn't. There isn't a center to the truth. The truth is the truth. You know what I mean? And what's right and what's right is right. What's wrong is wrong. And we had this weird thing in this country with our media and our politicians where we always have to like find common ground with bad people or bad terms or bad policies or bad or even falsehoods. And that's pretty much the story of America, man. Like, you know, we've always compromised with bad terms and bad policies, and we end up having to pay for this later on. So that actually kind of like goes in a little bit to if you want to get into infrastructure a little bit with the infrastructure compromise that was proposed a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I definitely do. First of all, we could talk a little bit with what's actually in these infrastructure bills, but before you get into that, the strategy is so bad. If you really want it, like, because originally the infrastructure bill was going to be one large bill, right? And that makes a lot more sense. But somewhere down the line, the administration, along with the conservative Democrats, decided that no, we're going to split up the bill. We're going to put all the good items that progressives were like, we're not going to put that in the main bill. We're going to do that through reconciliation. But, you know, we're going to put basically the Republican bill, because the infrastructure bill that Biden and those so-called moderate senators came up with, that's basically just the Republican proposal.
Yep.
Almost exclusively. We gonna put that for the main vote. But Biden said, okay, you know, I won't pass one without the other. And then he backtracked on that. So that leads me to believe I've seen this movie before.
He didn't backtrack all the way, to be fair. Like he it's a tough way to put it. He kind of like did a political like, we are taking I didn't mean to say it like that, but that's where I intended this. So I will give him a little bit of pushing that. He didn't back.
I give him I think we interpret that different. To me, that was a fully backtrack.
We'll see.
Because what he stated was that, okay, I understand why they would be mad. We negotiate all that, and you saying that we won't pass this bill without the other one. No, I didn't mean it like that, basically. So I don't know. That's pretty much a backtrack to me. And what he said was nothing wrong with that. Like, and this goes to the problem of splitting up the bill.
Yeah, I agree.
Because he wants to be seen as bipartisan so badly, and that's what he ran on. If you want to be fair, he did say that when he was running. That's one of the reasons I didn't support him. But he did say that.
Yes, he did.
So it doesn't make sense because the human infrastructure, that's what have the child care aspects in it. That's what have basically all the good parts is really in the partisan bill. You know, that's what have the child care, the elder care. It has education provisions in it. You know, so the main bill is just bridges, roads, a little bit of airport, a little bit working on airports, and that's basically it. And what they're doing is the unspent unemployment benefits. They're using most of that money to pay for the roads and bridges repairs. And even if you just into fixing roads and bridges, the $973 billion, that's not enough.
No, it's not.
Like, if you look at independent studies, nonpartisan independent studies, they saying that we need trillions.
Yeah.
Trillion. We need about 4 trillion.
That's a ridiculously high number. Yeah.
And that's not even going into the fact that we don't have high-speed rail. I mean, we was talking about high-speed rail during the recovery package in 2009.
That's right.
2009 went on, and then the Republicans killed that too. They was talking about redoing Amtrak, and like, how we a minor country don't even have high-speed rail. It's crazy. You have bridges falling down, you have buildings falling down, and we can't get it together. This is like the 973. That's like a Band-Aid, not even a Band-Aid.
And from what I was reading a little bit, a lot of the that money is going to go to private corporations to take care of that.
Yeah, public-private partnership. Yeah,
which really means like privates owning a lot of our roadways and so forth. So, it's just again, we like I said earlier, we do a little bit to compromise, and then many years later, we realized that that compromise was a mistake and we need to go big. That's what's going to happen. That's what always happens. That's American history. Like, we say we compromise, we're going to agree to these bad terms, and then 15, 20 years later, we're like, oh, we actually need to like really spend money on this. And, you know, by that point, damage has already been done, and many, instances people have already been harmed and so forth. So I'm tired. It's frustrating, but this is like the story of America, and Biden believes in that American story that we come to terms with slavery, we come to terms with like freedom, and we come to terms with like building up our country to be competitive again. It's just you do the bare minimum just to say that you were able to agree with a person that was adversary, and it's stupid. It's the stupidest thing, but.
No.
Yeah, that's what Biden wants to do.
Yeah, and we know this about Biden. But that leads me to another question. What do we do about it? Because I see a lot of online activism, social media activism, and a lot of it don't amount to anything. It's a lot of people complaining, a lot of people that want to debate each other, that want to sound smarter than the next person, without any real work being put in. Even if you see what's going on in the progressive community with these shows, like, it's like progressive shows, it's like the new rap game. They beefing with each other.
It's weird.
They basically dropping diss records.
Damn, it's weird. It's so weird. It's so weird. Like, I don't follow. So I'll give you my full transparency. I haven't watched Young Turks since like probably like early on in the Obama years. I just was like, this isn't really like going where they're not really saying much anymore. And then Jimmy Dore, I've never really followed like that, except for when he has Christopher Hedges on. I kind of like Christopher Hedges, so I'll watch like whatever stuff he's on. So I'll watch some stuff here and there, but What's going on with these people online right now is bizarre. The sexual harassment allegations are laughing about it. It's weird, B. Like and then people backstabbing each other and stuff.
There's proxy beef. It's
Proxy
all sort
beefs.
of,
It's so
it's
weird.
crazy.
It's weird, and it's weird because they're doing the same thing that they used to complain about what the Fox News and right wing people used to do. They're doing the exact same thing, and they don't have power to really make any influence with this stuff either. So it's just like, what are we fighting for? Like there's bigger things that they're actually like real life stuff that's going on right now, and y'all want to fight these like little wars. I mean, to go to your question though, because I don't follow like that stuff that much. You know, you got to make a show of stuff, man. I remember the one thing that like Biden's and them sort of did was when Vice President Harris went to West Virginia and kind of said that we need to pass his Recovery Act, and that like pissed off Manchin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I say that because we as people, you know, we need to start doing that. I know William Barber had the Poor People's March in West Virginia a couple months ago, where they marched to West Virginia, and they were Reverend William Barber, I'm sorry, and they marched to West Virginia, and they were like, you need to demand your senator to do more and get rid of filibuster and so forth. We as people, like, we got to realize that even though they work for the donors, a lot of them do, at every 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, they're accountable to us. And so that means that you need to like go out there and make your voices heard now, and not engaging in Twitter beefs and watching like these garbage ass shows that aren't really about stuff except for lining their own pockets. You need to go out there and get into the streets and actually like pound the pavement, and call your congresspersons, call your representatives, call your local reps, your state reps, and really get in their faces about what you need to see done. A lot of us are passive.
Mm-hmm. And I think it goes beyond that too. And to be fair, some of these stations do some work. I know that sounded crazy how I worded that, but some of them do the work. Like TUIT, you can feel however you want to feel about that, but you know, Cenk is one of the founders of the Justice Democrats, and that's one of the, like, if you like Omar, if you like AOC, I know some people's down on them now though, or if you like Rashida Tlaib, I mean, he was a part of forming that group, so give him credit for that. I know he has that Wolfpack group that's working on trying to get money out of politics, so I know he did put in some work, and some other the stations as well put in work. So, and you know, I'm not trying to even cover the beefs like that. That part is just weird, but I'm not even really referring to them specifically, like the actors or Jimmy Dore himself or TYTN or Cenk theirself. It's the followers. Like, it's the people that follow the stations that really invested in the personal beef, and not so much real action. You know, that's where I'm coming from. It's like a lot of people just love the drama, but don't want to focus on what you claim that you want to do. So at this point, asking politicians to do anything as an individual is not going to work.
No, not as individuals.
Even yeah. And even if you do petitions, it can have 30,000 petitions. That's really not going to do much, to be honest. Where it really counts is funding. That's what they care about, funding. And if they feel threatened, they're going to lose. But if the public is a little bit discontent with what they're doing, they don't care. Look at cinema. Like, the Democrats in Arizona is furious at what she's doing. She don't care.
No.
Why? She's still getting big funding. So I think it goes beyond that. You have to organize beforehand. Okay, you have to organize in community. Always go back locally to me. One of the things that I do is mentor. Like, mentorship is very important. Going to the youth, getting them to think about certain issues, getting them to critically think about issues, whether it comes to forming a business. So if you talk to a a child at a younger age, plant the seed. Okay, if you really want to work for yourself, because we know our community need businesses, you have to start early with that. A lot of this stuff is not going to be a tomorrow fix. You know, um, a lot of this stuff is going to take a decade or more,
Decades. Yeah.
So it's like that. But what are we doing as a collectively? Because I feel like a lot of times on the left, whether it's progressives or the black struggle, a lot of people feel like we're going to demand change. We're going to be really loud and make noise, and then it's going to change. It doesn't work that way.
Mm.
You can make as much noise as you want to. If you don't have a full plan to execute it, it doesn't matter. Remember Occupy Wall Street? People forget that even existed.
Yep.
And that was more than just online activism. They actually physically took over plazas. It was constant protest. But when the government said, okay, enough of this, and cleared it out, what happened? It was no real plan.
Yeah.
That's true. Just making noise is not good enough. And it's because the right, conservatives, white supremacists, they've been planning for decades on it. When I was in Florida, I was hearing like some of these plans from these militia groups. I would listen to this conservative talk radio, and they would talk openly about plans, about what they wanted to do, and they got a lot of their plans through. So, and I feel like we so disjointed. That's why we constantly at a disadvantage. Constantly.
So outside of, like, I know you mentioned like community mentors. I think that's a big thing. It's like to kind of reach your kids first and foremost. That's number one. I think that's like we talked about a bunch of times. Like talking to them is like number one. I think, and we talked about it before, the black community is a capital issue on the left side, especially progressives. How do we do something along those lines to pool our money together to be able to like to withstand that, to be able to like say, all right, this is who we're backing, this is what we're doing now, this is who we as progressives are doing. I know Justice Democrats is one aspect of it, but we need like a community mechanism of like pulling our money together to start getting money behind the right candidates. Like how do we do that? Like what's the solution for you?
Well, first, like I was saying, I would start with the local candidates first, pulling the money together because it costs less. Pulling our money together at this point to try, like I live in New York State. I don't know, even if I have success, I don't know how much money I could pull together to take out Chuck Schumer in a primary.
That's fair.
Like Chuck Schumer gets so much money for Wall Street. Even if I could raise $1 million, Wall Street can drown that out. So that wouldn't be my first target. First target would be getting control of our city council. Getting the right mayor in, depending on the size of your city, which, bigger cities, that could be more of a task because that runs into the same problem again.
Yep.
With big money. So it just all depends on the local situation, but city council is more doable, and educating the citizens in itself to actually be aware of some of these situations and what impacts what. And it's hard to do it with adults. That's why I always go back to youth, because by the time people are 40, a lot of people just set in their mindset. It's very hard to, and I'm out in the community all the time, like in my local area, talking to people. It's very hard to get a grown person to change their outlook. Very hard. They could even agree with you, and they'd be like, what, you right, but they'll go back to doing the same thing over, right, what they was doing. You'll have much more success with the youth. So that's what I target, is trying to educate the youth first, and hopefully when they get of age, we could do a good enough job with enough younger people that they can start making the change, start thinking long term about DA races, because we have a bench problem, as you said. We have a problem of candidates that care about our issues running for sheriff, running for DA. running for judges. You know, um, how many judges that care about our issue are in the state Supreme Court?
Right.
You know, like forget. I'm not even talking about federal judges, but in your state judge system, locally, even family court, which is important as well. Like we need more Black attorneys to run for these positions, and more than just Black attorneys, just attorneys that have a certain mindset. Like Larry Krasner is not Black, but I was really invested in his race, even though he's not my local DA. He's a DA in the Philadelphia area, because he ran a more progressive campaign and tried to enact more progressive policies. Right. We need more candidates like that, and that was a white man. That's fine. But we need those type of candidates. And when we do get those kind of candidates, we have to support them. That's when you start donating. You know, that's when we should have targeted lists. And I do see progressives doing that. That's one thing a lot of these online progressives are good at, is identifying candidates that, you know, they want grassroots funding for. Like right now, the big wave is Nina Turner.
Yes.
Is donating to her, which is cool. But we need so much more than that. We need to be able to grab a bench. And how do you grab a bench? You know, that takes work over years. The conservatives took over the courts right now, right? They have a 6-3 majority in Supreme Court. They got a bunch of right-wing extremists in the federal courts overall. They've been playing that ever since Buckley versus Vallejo. Actually, before that. And that decision was like, what, in the 70s?
That's
so
shit,
they've been doing...
William Powell? When he like wrote that document to corporations about what he wanted to do for what we need to do for as conservatives to get like corporate power and all that stuff, and he actually got him in the Supreme Court. I think 10 years later. Was it William Powell? Yeah, it was him. Yeah.
Yeah. So these conservatives they enact plans over decades.
It was Powell. Sorry.
Yeah. So the Supreme Court takeover, they fully got it. What 40 or something years, 40, 50 years they worked on it, long term. Now they lost Roe versus Wade, the abortion argument, right? But what they do, they took over local governments, they took over the governorships in these states, and they virtually made abortions almost virtually illegal in a lot of these states by being able to shut down clinics or whatever. And you may agree with that, but that's just an example. I know you don't agree with that, but
no, I know.
People may agree with that, but like again, that was long-term strategy. They just don't take L's. You know, like with us, I don't know. We take L after L. It doesn't seem like we have the same long-term strategic planning.
Well, a lot of it. The left focuses, not the left, but the Democrats focus on the White House. You know, it's a lot of focus on the White House. Exactly. It's a huge mistake. We focus on the executive and not focus on, like you mentioned, the state, locals, smaller races. Try to like build up a bench for that. We focus only on the White House. Everything's about the White House. Who's gonna, even now, we're not talking about you know, we're talking about 2024 right now, and I'm like, well, we have elections next year, and a lot of elections are critical. Like, let's worry about that in your cities and your states and so forth. No, it's all about the White House only, and the federal levels only. Right,
and we have control of the White House now, and these states is running amok.
Yep.
Well, actually, we don't have control of the White House. It's a candidate that,
But but your point is the Democrats control the White House now, and states are still like, fuck you, we're going to do whatever the hell we want. And that's it right there, man. Like,
that's just how it is.
Yeah.
So like, it's a different. I just think we thinking about things wrong, and then you have people right that just want to form a third party or support the Green Party, which I understand because I hate the Democratic Party as well, and the Republicans are laughable, but it goes back to a ballot issue. Realistically, can you form a third party with basically no capital? It goes back to starting a business. You need money for these parties. Where is the Green Party going to get their money from, or any third party? Are you even going to have money? Are you even going to be able to get on the ballot?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the thing. And a lot of these states, third parties, it's very you can't even get on the ballot because it's very hard to get ballot access.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an easy process.
Mm-hmm.
The Green Party been around for a while. I think they got ballot access to about 48 states. They still have 2 states where they don't even have ballot access.
Yep.
Libertarians, do they have ballot access? Libertarian Party, do you have ballot access in all 50 states? You know, like, again, it's very. I wouldn't vote Libertarian anyway, but I just
but just is that it's a challenge to get ballot access in most states, and you can't just say that without understanding what that actually entails and the work that actually means. And even then, if you're able to get ballot access in these states, the way we set up is winner take all. So it's like, you know, it's designed for 2 parties to succeed. You can't. It's really hard for a third party to come up from wherever to knock these 2 parties out because of it being a winner take all system.
Right.
So there's a lot of work to do. It's just a lot of work to do, and we got to be serious about what the work is and start really thinking about like putting a vision together and thinking about this is where we want to be versus on some like, no, we're gonna get this person into these positions and this is gonna happen next year. No, it's much longer than that, and you got to have like a longer vision. And like you said, man, progressives, leftists, and even a lot of our moderate Democratic friends who are really right wingers have that mindset of like, no, we're just gonna continue to aim for these positions only and not think about the long term ramifications and stuff. And that's why Republicans have dominated American politics the last 40 years.
And I feel like we gotta start all the way from the beginning because even though the conservatives got control of the courts right now, you still don't see an urgency on our side. Only people that really into politics seem to understand what's going on with the courts. There's still no talks about the courts. There's no talk about local courts. There's still a lack of talk about getting control of state senates and the state legislators. Like it's a lack of focus on that. What Republicans did when they lost the White House in 2008 to Obama, they focused on the states. They got control of state senates all across the country. We gotta do a better job of planning. Like we think getting a Congress person in is going to do it, and yes, that helps. It definitely helps, but how many true progressives is in Congress? And again, I think it goes to human nature. A lot of times you get in those systems, like we was talking about the Exxon guy or Stephen A. Sometimes you see the changes. And you have to take that into consideration. That's going to happen from time to time, especially if it's not a lot of them in there. You know, a lot of times they don't want to feel that pressure. It happens. So, like, that's what I mean by real work. Just like sometimes not always about the glorious position.
The even looking at our government right now, for instance, I worked at a university a couple of years ago, right? And so Betsy DeVos was like, you know, changing Title IX up and all that stuff. Like she wanted to change that, and that took years to do, and that's probably going to get reversed now, even with under Biden and stuff. But she took her like 3 or 4 years to put that together and stuff. But the point I'm making though is that when you're in those executive agencies, the people that are actually like doing the work, that are actually moving stuff on there, aren't the secretaries of the offices. The people that are under these people that are actually like kind of grinding, putting legal arguments together, working for years and years to make sure that this is the way it's going to be. And I say that because like, that's like an allegory to like, that's like an illusion. That's like a comparison to like what's going on with politics. Like you got to like work from the ground and really work hard and start putting the service together to be able to start like growing this stuff. You gotta, you know, when you plant a seed, you know, you got to make sure the flower it's good. You got to make sure the soil is good, the topsoil is good, and then you put your seeds in there and it grows, right? It germinates. It's the same thing. You gotta, it's time and patience. You don't just like, it doesn't happen overnight. But we unfortunately have this mindset where things have to happen overnight, And for me, I know I'm impatient with that sometimes, but I'm also on the line of like, well, I don't even see like Democrats even like being urgent about some stuff and trying to like even work in some ways,
Right.
like really being
And
thinking that we have to work a certain way.
and that's why it's not for me. Yes, we probably have to work with the Democrats because, like I said, at this point, the Republicans is on another planet.
Yeah.
But it's more about policies. We got to come to them with specific policies. I give this example. There was a video, you can look it up online, of it was, I think, a Black Lives Matter activist was protesting at a Hillary Clinton event. And I think for public relations, Hillary actually let them talk to her. And then, and I can't stand Hillary Clinton, but Hillary Clinton asked them a specific question. She was like, okay, what do you want me to do? They had no answers.
I remember this video. Yeah.
No answers.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, you get that opportunity. You have to have an agenda. You have to have specifics. Like, we need to work on specifics. Specifics right now, because, I think I navigate and we navigate both the Black activism realm and progressives. And sometimes they intersect and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
Depending on the issue. I know on the Black side, the main thing is reparations, which I fully support. But what are some of the other agendas we should have besides reparations? Because you talk to some people, it's like they don't know another word besides that.
Yep.
Now, that's going to take time. But what about in local election? What could your local government do? Your local city government is not going to be able to really, well, possibly they can. Asheville, North Carolina had a bill that passed with reparations because, North Carolina was big in the eugenics and sterilizing Black women back in the day. A lot of those states were. So you can work on reparations on the local level too.
Evansville, Illinois, it was the same thing too. Evansville, Illinois had reparations as well. Yeah.
Yep. So you can work on that. But besides just that, which would take longer, like your local city council member, and how can we make it easier to get co-op businesses going?
Exactly.
Can we form a co-op in our community? Because forming a co-op is not the easiest thing you're gonna do. How can y'all make it easier for us to form co-ops? What we going to do to form a co-op grocery store in a food desert? Specific stuff that would improve the lives of real people. That's the focus. And then when you start doing that, again, you can start getting a bench too. When you actually are doing things to improve the lives of real people and not just saying, oh, I demand this. How you going to demand something with no leverage?
Exactly.
You have to create your leverage.
No back end behind you, like you said, no capital, nothing like that. You can't just be like, I want this, and like who like it's like that. Whose man is this thing? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just like that. Who's this person? Like, who are you? You don't have anybody that's backing you and stuff. When you get victories, which is what you're talking about here, when you get like these victories in your community, people see you as a person that's done stuff, and they're willing to say, well, I know this person has done something, instead of speaking in these like grand like ways that we in the Black community, activist communities tend to do and progressives tend to do. We just speaking grand terms instead of saying, well, what can I do today that can actually improve somebody's life?
Right.
We need to start focusing on that more.
Yep, and that's on the progressive side. I think I talked about this for months on end. Remember, I kept asking, why isn't progressives forcing Biden to do a public option? They wasted a lot of time on forced to vote for Medicare for all, which never was going to happen. And people might say, well, the public option never was going to happen either, but you had a lot more leverage.
He said he wanted to do it. Yeah, he just say he
even though I don't believe he really wanted to do it, I think he just said it. But
no, but you make him, but you put that to his feet. Like you said, this is what you wanted, and now you're not doing it. No, but he didn't want to do that.
We could have demanded that he kept his promise, but instead we wasted time, and the whole debate was progressives arguing amongst themselves about a forced to vote that wasn't going to amount to anything.
Right.
We forced to vote for Medicare for all. The only thing that was going to happen is the vote wouldn't have passed. We had more leverage to force them to do a public option, and now the Biden administration said, because the article came out earlier this month or late last month, that they don't feel the pressure to do public options, so they're not even going to do it. That means that if enough pressure was brought on them, they would have been forced to do some type of public option.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I mean. We have to start thinking more strategically. It's just like people are throwing a tantrum like a baby and just say, I want this, and not even strategizing about how we going to get it.
That's a good analogy, yeah.
Right. You get a public option that gets you closer to Medicare for all.
Yep.
Like if we able to get funding for co-ops, that get us closer to getting more grants and more funding for startup Black businesses.
Exactly, man.
Like, we have to have a strategy. Like, this is what I'm saying, because I guess I'm in a position where I get to talk to people in the community a lot for several different reasons, certain things that I'm doing. And these are just my observations, just being around the community and just talking to people.
You keep saying, man, like you have to get these people victories to show that you can do stuff. And these are the benefits of it. These are the fruits of your work and all that stuff. And that, it's like the snowball effect. It keeps building up, building up, and building up. And
then you get a bench.
Then you get a bench. Exactly. Yep. You get people that are like, who's this person? Let me work with them. And boom, now you have like people behind you and you have a bench. We got to start working from the ground level up. And I think some people are doing that. I'm not sure if a lot of people online are doing that. I know you mentioned Justice Democrats, but I just found that stuff. I don't think that the people that are doing these YouTube videos and other commentary stuff are that serious, but I think it's time for us to like step up and be serious about this stuff and start doing these things ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's like you said, the barrier entry is not as high as it is to walk into like Joe Manchin's office and say, "Hey, can you do this for me?" You can start much lower, and people can actually see you and see the work you're doing.
Yeah, and I'll leave you with this. I think if we have a little bit of knowledge, we all can do mentoring. That's not the biggest task in the world. Now, I do admit, like, you do your local Boys and Girls Club, a lot of those hours don't work out for people that really work jobs. So if we can establish maybe mentor organizations amongst ourselves, I think we could pool our money together, do something like that. You could do that with limited capital. Try to go to a local community center, bargain with them, weekend programs. You could do stuff like that, because we all could do mentor and have an expertise come in, talking about saving money, talk about these careers that we really need Black youth to go into, like law, like the health field. We desperately need Black people in the health field. We need, I know the big wave is right now with STEM, which I don't have no problem with that. We need Black people in STEM as well. But health field is getting overlooked because the mortality rate amongst Black women that give birth, and the way we get treated in the health industries too, and the biasness that is against us in the with certain physicians and certain specialists. It's a big deal. We definitely need a lot more Black people in those fields. So that is getting left out with all the talk about, the STEM fields, which we need too. But basically, anything that our youth want to do, we need more entrepreneurship and business too. So basically, anything you like to do that you could create a business, even if it's a service industry, fine. How can we create a business about this? This is what we need to start talking about. Right. Black business owners talking, giving game about how to start businesses to the youth. This is the type of stuff we need to start doing and coming together, taking control of our community. And then, yes, we can kind of pool resources together and demand certain things. I think that's how it goes.
Okay.
That's me though, because I think a lot of people start
it's a game plan.
People start like way up here. I'm just like, okay, a lot of times nothing changed in your local area at all. So and it's I mean, we always talk, and I think the other thing with that too is that once you're making that work and making yourself known in the community,
you can start getting people, if you're running for office or all this stuff, you're starting to get people to actually vote for you, and you get people that wouldn't actually vote for you because they know that the work can be done. I think a lot of, like, especially in Black communities and working class Black communities and lower class Black communities, a lot of people don't vote, and that's because, like, whoever the president is, it doesn't really impact them. Right. They don't see the impact, and doesn't really impact them that much. When you are able to do stuff and make yourself a presence in your community, and people can see you, well, I like that person. This is a real person. They're actually, are doing something for real. Let me go ahead and support whatever efforts they're doing, and that leads, like you said, eventually leads people to supporting you. At least to getting them politically active, and there we go. And you start seeing your process grow. So I think that's like really, really, really important, man. Like you laid that out. That's really important.
Yeah. See, that's all I have for the day. I've been on my soapbox a little bit, but yeah, this is
it's all good though.
It's an issue that's starting to annoy me a lot. But you have any final words?
No, man, this has been a good discussion. I think that, like, I think we're having, like, a really good conversation about this stuff, and we talk about this a lot. And I hope that people that are watching this, listening to this, can see that, like, yeah, we're I think what we're trying to say is that the onus is on you. you come out there and actually, like, if you want to see change in your community, you do it. You make that impact. It's not, we kept waiting for these supernovas to come down and save us. It's up to us. And my hope is that more and more people realize that and start making the changes themselves in their community, or start supporting people in their community that are doing stuff, that are doing real changes, and start giving them the energy they need to continue fighting. That's, like, mad important, man. And that, like, if you talked earlier about working in corporate America or any professional office, a lot of us, when we see a colleague, that looks like us, that's, like, progressing and giving us, like, and dapping us in the back, or giving us, like, our energy, we grow and we advance. It's the same thing in your community as well. So I'm hoping that people that are listening to this and watching this can start, like, seeing, like, what we're trying to say here, and seeing what we're trying to do, and start taking that back to their own homes and their own communities, to start doing stuff.
Definitely, for sure. And yeah, I probably just said enough. It's been almost an hour and a half, so
I gotta eat.
I'm good.
I'm watching basketball.
Oh yeah, I think the game should be on now. I think it's supposed to start at 8, or is that just the pregame at 8?
I think 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock is the game. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. I want to see my man CP3 if he can pull it out. How Giannis is gonna do? Yeah. I gotta get to that. So, all right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you share the video, because we have real discussions like this. There's just no gimmicks, no loud yelling, no theater, just real conversation. No drama.
No diss tapes.
No diss tapes. Yeah, so don't get too caught up on this online beef stuff. If you want to watch it just for entertainment, fine. Because I love battle rap, so I'm all for that. So, but if you want to just watch it for entertainment, it's cool. But don't let it just consume you and feel like you gotta go to war on a particular side, because there's a lot of online beef amongst Black YouTubers as well, and there's a lot of online beef amongst progressive YouTubers amongst each other. Like, whatever, just stay focused on what we need to do to better your family and better the community. That's it.
All right, y'all. Take care. Peace.